What is up, ARC fam? Today, up for review, we have the Thundercats Deluxe, Mumra the Ancient, and Ghost of Jaga action figures from Super 7. I'm also going to be going over the Thundercats Deluxe Super 7 vintage-inspired LJN style Lion-O action figure. I do not have the packaging for him on me at the time. It has already been put into storage, but I'm still going to go ahead and run over the articulation with him as well. So, moving Lion-O in closer, here's what his head sculpt looks like. Looks really nice. I will do a comparison with the vintage in short format at some point on the channel. This figure I've had for a couple weeks now. Here he has the red claw glove and the red and silver Sword of Omens based off of the LJN action figure. He has more of the LJN inspired Thundercat symbol, so it's less detailed and doesn't really look as awesome as the primary Thundercats logo that you can see on Jaga's chest right here. For the head, it can look up absolutely none, down some, rotate a little bit side to side, not really. It is removable, I do believe, yes, but the neck peg does not move. I think this is the same body that they used for the light piping Lion-O figure where he had the glow eyes. That's what it appears to be. And in that version, this piece is actually removable and there's a battery pack. So I think they just reused the same torso and neck because this is actually translucent peg that's like in an orange translucent plastic, and they just reused that for some reason. But his eyes do not light up. There's no actual light up feature, but they did reuse that same type of articulation point and then just glued the peg in. The arms can go out. That's really tight. I really do not want to break this figure because it's actually pretty expensive. There we go. Arms can go out that far. They can go back down. Really tight joints. It is worth mentioning that by moving the arm like that, it did slightly damage the figure right there. Hold on one second. Let me turn on my lights. By moving the arm up, this hard piece of plastic that is the main body kind of scratched the shoulder just a little bit right there. I don't know if that's coming across on camera very well. And then for the other side, there's a little bit of scratching there too, but not as bad, so you will want to be careful with that. The neck and stomach is painted on, so it's a little bit sloppy on mine, just a tiny bit. And you can kind of see the bluish tinge underneath it in some areas. So you may really want to be careful with that part. Try not to bump that or scratch it because Super 7 figures paint is easily scratched. The elbows, actually first the bicep/tricep swivel is pretty good there. So you can get that arm out. Also the hinge on the wrist means you can raise the Sword of Omens up way better than any He-Man figure can raise up the power sword. So here we have that, and it raises up really well. Putting the camera back down, the elbow can bend right here, single joint, goes about that far, and like I showed you, this one's a upward hinge hand and it rotates, so that's pretty good. Also, this part is painted. So it is painted to match the hands, but it can chip, and it is a little bit damaged right here already just from me moving the hand up and down on the plastic. So whatever type of plastic Super 7 has used on this particular figure is a little bit more delicate and easily damaged, it seems. Other arm has the same articulation, except for I have put on the claw glove, which simply moves side to side. I don't think there's any actual... Yeah, there's no hinge in there, so it just plugs directly into the hand socket. It does actually come with another hand, but I do not have that hand with me. I left it in the package that I already put into storage. Then the torso has a little bit of an ab crunch, which goes back about that far and down about that far. So not really much there. Side to side is a little bit better up there at the top part, and then lower part also gives the crunch a little bit more, and then the backwards quite a bit. So he can look backwards a good amount, and then that also gives him a little bit more side to side crunch. The shorts are like a soft rubbery overlay, so the legs can kick forward about that far, and then backwards all the way. Then of course they can do the splits just like so. Here's a better look at the inside joint pieces. So you have a rotation and then a hinge, so the legs should be able to also rotate just a little bit at the thighs. Yes, they can, just like that. It's super tight, so be careful with that. They have reused the same belt that was previously used on other Lion-Os, so you have a peg for the claw glove. However, there is no way to actually attach that, as you can see right here. They reused that same design on the cartoon-inspired Deluxe Lion-O as well, and you could also not store his claw shield, so that's a little bit strange that they keep reusing this belt instead of making a new one without the peg. Knees do bend, but this side's like really stuck, so I'm just going to show the swivel on it. Just swivels it. It will not bend on this side. Let's see about this side. Okay, the knees are supposed to bend, and I believe they'll bend to about 90, it appears. But mine are stuck, so I'm not going to mess with that because these joints are brittle. Ankles down, forward, side to side. So if you were able to bend the knees, you could probably get some dynamic poses out of those along with the ankles, but since my knees are stuck, I am not going to actually show that part off, and I do not have any hot water or a hairdryer on hand, so I cannot warm those up to see if they will unstick. Also, it's worth mentioning that if the leg part comes out of the loin piece right here, you kind of have to stretch the loin piece back out of the way and put the leg back inside the loin piece and then retwist the thighs, which also does scratch the blue piece just a little bit. So right now, Mattel figures are looking really good, in my opinion, in comparison to Super 7 with QC stuff or whatever. Because Mattel figures, they do have some minor paint application issues, but paint scratching never seems to be a problem with those. But Super 7 figures seem to scratch a lot easier, and at a higher price point, I don't think it's 100% worth it. I'm going to go ahead and bring in Jaga. So here's a nice look at the packaging. Has a nice LJN vintage-inspired look. Thundercats logo, Deluxe logo, ages 14+, and the Super 7 logo. Moving down, we have the Thundercats emblem, Jaga, in parentheses, Ghost Edition. Jaga is trademarked, and the Deluxe action figure call out on the side. We just have the Deluxe logo, and on the other side, we also have the Deluxe logo. On the back side, we have the same art that they use on all of the figures, so no photography, no cross-sell, just the Super 7 logo, Deluxe logo, Thundercats logo, and this one piece of artwork, which can be seen across all of the Deluxe figure packaging so far that I have reviewed or picked up. I have also picked up the Snarf Vintage Edition and the Monkeyan figure, and I did review the Monkeyan figure on the channel before, so if you haven't checked that out, you can go ahead and run down to the channel. It's one of my earlier videos, but the quality is still pretty good in my opinion. Here we have the Deluxe Mum-Ra the Ancient, which does appear to have a cloth wired cape, so we'll get a nice look at that when I open the figure. Moving down, we have Mum-Ra Deluxe action figure. Mum-Ra is trademarked, of course. Thundercats logo at the top, also trademarked. Super 7 logo, Deluxe logo, trademark and restricted trademark, ages 14+. Backside, once again, the same artwork, reused across the board for the Deluxe action figures. So I'm going to go ahead and get these figures out of the packaging and get a closer look at them. So inside the packaging for the Mum-Ra figure, we have this little tray right here that the cape goes through the back right here in this hole. And then we have a secondary tray that actually holds the figure. that has these little plastic tabs on the sides, along with tape that holds them to the secondary tray that I just showed you. And then the figure is placed in this little tray right here. And the cape is folded back and once again threaded through the hole of the secondary tray. The figure has one singular tie around the waist right here, which I will go ahead and cut for us right here. And then it seems the figure should be free after that. No other ties, it doesn't seem like, so let's see. Yes, and that's the only tie for the Mum-Ra figure, so let me adjust the camera and we'll get a closer look at him. Really quickly, for the Jaga figure, we also have a secondary tray right here that keeps the cape in place. And then the cape is a translucent rubber with a piece of cellophane around that, which keeps the cape from actually touching the figure in the package. And then there is the little ties right here. I guess it's protecting from the tie because the figure is in a separate tray right there. So it looks like he just has one tie as well that actually goes underneath his armor. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that and then adjust the camera and show off both figures. Here we have both figures outside of the packaging. It is worth mentioning that to remove Jaga outside of the bubble tray, you do have to detach the cape from the main armor piece that is connected to the lower loin piece. So it's a simple snap peg. You pop it off right at the Thundera logo, and then the cape slides through the back tray and the figure comes out of the front tray. That is also how the twist tie is attached, is you simply, like I said, pop this out, undo the twist tie, pull the little piece forward, and slide the twist tie out. Bringing Jaga in closer, we're going to go ahead and review him first. He has a very, very nice head sculpt. I do believe this entire figure is reuse of a previously released Thundercats Ultimates Jaga, just with less accessories and maybe slightly different deco. I'm not sure this is the first Jaga figure that I've ever actually purchased, but I recognize this body scheme from the earlier Super 7 figures. It's very similar to Motu Classics in that sense. Also, I love this translucent plastic color. It'd be very cool for making custom Icemen to go along with your Masters of the Universe or Thundercats Classics / Ultimates collection. Like I said, very nice head sculpt. We have some whitish blue paint on the beard and mustache, and as well as on the eyebrows. The eyes are painted a nice blue and white color scheme with a tiny little bit of black for the iris part of the eyes. The helmet has this malleable little spike atop the head or helmet, which can be moved around, so it's a little bit pokey, but it's definitely not going to puncture you. You'll break it before it breaks you. The head seems to be slightly more rubberized, but in a good way. This piece right here that hangs from the back of his helmet is a soft rubber that is pinned and glued into the back of his helmet. The helmet has a nice purpley hue to the lower parts of it, and then the raised parts are cast in the clearish frosted color. The paint for the jewel in the center of the helmet matches the eye color very well. Moving down, the Thundercats emblem is still red and black, as always, but it's a very toned down version, which is very similar to how he looked in the cartoon after episode 1 when he becomes the Ghost of Jaga. This armor piece right here and the cape is very, very pliable. Nice plastic, seems like it'll get out of the way. Doesn't seem to scratch very easily. I'm rubbing my nail across it and there's very little damage, so I do believe this cape should hold up over time pretty well, at least when it comes down to minor damages like scuffing and stuff like that. I'm not sure how it'll hold up with deterioration of plastic and stuff like that, but for the most part it looks really good. I do believe that this accessory right here is glow in the dark. I have no way of really testing that at this moment, at least not on camera. But it's a very nice Sword of Omens that is like a glow-in-the-dark plastic color with a very light pinkish red and yellow color scheme on the closed side of the eye. Oh, it's closed on both sides. Okay. And then a very nice turquoise green or seafoam green painted in the recessed parts of the Sword of Omens. The wrist bracer over here is cast in a nice blue with a lighter blue on the raised parts. So that looks very nice. It is like a rubbery piece that I think is sculpted. It is sculpted on and painted, so it's like more of a rubbery plastic throughout this figure, I guess, to make it less brittle, because normally clear plastics are very brittle. This is like an in-between regular plastic and rubber, like super dense rubber or something like that. This wrist bracer is a little bit different. It's more of a light blue with hints of the darker blue instead of the vice versa. The hand has some extra frosted detail painting on it, which does not necessarily look the greatest in my opinion. I'm not sure if that was for any particular purpose, but it does have like the extra paint, like I said. The other hand seems to have the same type of deal going on, but it looks like it's internal, whereas this one's external. I'm not sure if that is a defect, maybe overspray from this gauntlet, because it appears to be the same color as this gauntlet that is all over the hand. So that might be a factory error there. Moving down, we have the same rubbery loin piece as Lion-O, so you can move the legs up and it'll get out of the way for you. This rubberized plastic allows for the legs to actually go beyond their natural position. So you can see the leg is like completely broken looking right there. And then it can also bend all the way backwards as it should. There's a very large cut right here where you can see the articulation points. So the legs can really go fully out for the splits on this figure. I mean, beyond natural splitting abilities. And then the cape, like I said, is a separate piece, so it just popped out there. So there's just a hole right there. Now you can actually see the torso underneath. So it is like a standard Ultimates torso or Classics torso. So that has the ab crunch right there, which means there's no side to side. There's just rotation. So none of the side crunches like you get with the other figure that I just showed off in Lion-O. Then there's a peg on the back side. I do believe that the Thundercats emblem is a completely separate piece from the cape. It's just glued in, so you can't remove that without breaking the actual figure. So that's how that would connect, is just by raising the armor up and then connecting it like so. But it doesn't seem to want to stay together 100% just because of how rubbery this piece is. But I think you can get it in a singular pose and then it should be fine. It's just moving the figure around for the review is going to continually knock it out of position. The arms can go out to T-pose a little bit higher than average because of the rubbery plastic, like I said before. They can go forwards and backwards, swivel at the bicep/tricep, single joint at the elbow, a little bit over 90 degree there, and then it can also go back really far just because the type of plastic. So I would be careful with that. The joints do seem to be a harder plastic, which is why you can kind of see them. It's not all the same plastic type, so it should hold up. Hinge at the wrist, swivel at the wrist, and then hinge at the wrist on this side. The rest of the arm should be the same, forwards and backwards, swivel, bend at the elbow, bend at the elbow. Like I showed you, the waist does move, but this piece really does keep coming undone on the chest. I already showed you the legs, so here's the ankles. They go all the way down. So you can get some nice flight poses if you want to, and all the way up. Very Superman-style boots. And then you can swivel at the ankles right there. So the Jaga figure is really articulated. The head can look up a little bit, but it does seem to go back into position because of the way this rubberized piece is. It's malleable, but it still kind of gets in the way. Same thing for this cape. And then you can look down a little bit and side to side. I do believe the head is still removable. Yes, we have a little barbell joint right there, but it doesn't appear to move. So, and that is a very brittle plastic. I don't know if you heard it, but it kind of made a cracking noise when I went to try to see if it was articulated. So that is a joint at the head that I would be extra careful moving around. Just be careful with the whole figure, because I do believe all the inner joints are that harder plastic like this barbell. So it may be wiser to not pose the figure a lot. Just find one solitary pose that you think looks good for Jaga, something noble, protective, or something like that. And then leave him. Don't continue posing him. Don't use him as your primary figure. I don't suggest using him for stop motions and stuff like that. Just leave him as a display piece. He is the guy that just gives the advice. He doesn't need to be out in the battlefield or anything like that. So just be careful with this figure. $40-something figure, so I would just be extra careful. Here's how he looks beside Lion-O. So they scale very similarly. Of course, this is toy inspired, this is animation inspired, but still same toy line, same base body as the cartoon Lion-O. Here are a few size comparisons for this Jaga. Oops. Here's a Masters of the Universe, Masterverse Vintage Collection Skeletor figure. So there's how those scale side by side. Moving that off to the side, we have a Masters of the Universe Classics Skeletor as well. So these are basically the same scale and style of toy. It's just, of course, I do believe this is Mattel and this is Super 7. If you're not aware, Super 7 took over the Mattel Classics line near the end of the Classics run, and Mattel had just began doing Thundercats right before they decided that Super 7 could take over. I think it's because the Four Horsemen split off or something like that. Some sort of legalese caused them to split, but there's how he looks. Here's the little Mum-Ra, the Ancient. Oops. So there's how that scales. If you're curious, here is a standard Motu Origins figure in the form, oops, sorry about hitting the camera, in the form of the 2000X Skeletor. He is really not wanting to stand up straight, but there's how that looks. Scale-wise, they are not compatible, really, unless you just want to use this as a ghost so he can be a little bit taller. That's actually what I'm going to do with my Thundercats Origins, but I did not bring those for the comparison. Here is the new Chronicles movie Trapjaw figure from the Mattel Chronicles line for the new Masters of the Universe live-action film. He is taller. This Trapjaw is the largest figure in the line so far, so he is a little bit more Masterverse scaled. Moving him off to the side, here is a Chronicles Scareglow. So here's a nice ghost comparison, because technically Scareglow is a ghost. So there's how those two look side by side. They're basically the same scaling. And overall body scheme, this is actually a little bit larger than a standard Chronicles. Just because of his musculature, for some reason, is a little bit larger. I guess because the movie figures are supposed to be more representative of natural human proportions. And lastly, I have three more comparisons. We have the WWE Elite Ultimate Warrior, the one that came with the Dingo Warrior head sculpt. So there's how that looks. Scales pretty similarly. We have a standard Masterverse new Eternia figure, because they are slightly smaller than the Vintage Collection. So there's how those scale side by side. And then for my final comparison, I have a McFarlane Toys The Witcher figure. I'm not sure which character this is. I just bought him because he looks bad, but I mean, he's really awesome. So there's how he scales with a McFarlane standard figure. Here we have the main event, the Mum-Ra the Ancient action figure from the Deluxe series from Super 7. This is my first figure from Super 7 for Mum-Ra, so I'm not sure exactly what differs in this figure from the standard Ultimates releases. I know that this figure has had several different releases, so I'm not sure if the body is any different, but he has a nice head sculpt right here. There's a side view, front view, other side view, and back view. You have this nice wired hood and cape, so you can kind of move that around, pose it however you want to, cover his face if you want to, whatever you want. It looks best just sprawled out like that. Cape is like a dark purple on the inside, and then a bright orangish red color on the outside. More orange than red, in all honesty. And that is just simply connected with a little hook and clasp in the front, so you can remove that. And there's how that looks. It's just a little piece of fabric sewn onto another piece of fabric with wires running all along the seams. So that's nice. Here's the Mum-Ra figure without the actual cape on, so you can get a better look at his body style and sizing. I'm going to go ahead and show the Lion-O alongside, just to show how different the body styles are between the two figures, and of course the height difference. Lion-O's going off camera, whereas Mum-Ra is completely on camera. He's a pretty cool looking figure. Like I said, head sculpt is really nice. Not much to him. His head can look up about that far, down a little bit, and it rotates side to side. I think it's removable. Yes, the head is removable. So we just have a standard barbell joint that actually does articulate a little bit. So that's what that would look like. It's smaller than like the standard pegs, and much smaller than the Lion-O peg. So you cannot really swap heads without modification, but there's that head sculpt once more. Popping that back on. It is really tight. There you go, nice snap. Arms can go all the way up, like so. All the way forward, like so. Yeah. He has an articulation point right here, and it can rock side to side, forwards and backwards. Then he has another one at the waist that kind of rocks a little bit and goes side to side, and then spins. We have single joints at the elbow. Oh, actually, we have tricep swivel. There we go. And that is where this little piece is connected, is from one tricep to the other. So that's how that is connected. So be careful with that. It's a nice rubber piece. It should get out of the way, but if it doesn't, don't try to force the arm, because you might break that. We have a little bit of slop from the white part on the elbow joint, but that's fine. Elbow can go all the way backwards like it's broken, and then all the way forwards about that far. It actually might be backwards. Yeah, that's what it is. It was backwards. There we go. So now the elbow can go a little bit farther forward, and then hinge at the wrist. Very soft hands, so be careful with that. And then you can remove those little small peg right there. Other arm should be the same. Bend at the elbow, hinge at the wrist, swivel at the wrist. Moving down, the legs can go all the way out in a split. This is a very malleable rubber piece that is slightly different color than the paint, but it's ever so slight, so not really noticeable. And then the legs can go forwards, kick about that far, backwards about that far. Same thing on the other side. So I think you could get some nice sitting poses if you want to, like that. Knees can bend about that far. Swivel. Then you have a little rocker at the ankle. Whoops. Rocker at the ankle, like I said. And hinge. Foot can go down that far and up that far. Very large feet for this figure. Like, they're about the size of a standard figure. even though this figure is a lot smaller. Let me try to put the cape back on really quickly. Pose the figure a little bit. So the cape should be easy to put back on. You just simply lift this, or don't lift that actually. And then you just take the little clasp and hook it to the little ring, and there you go. Cape's back on. You can do the classic closed hood or cloak like he did in the animation when he first got out of the coffin. His cloak was always closed. Looks like you can do that pretty well. Not 100% closed, but pretty well. You can raise his arm, basically pose that however you want to. I mean, it's a little bit limited just because the way the wires are connected, but you can get some poses out of that. Spirits of evil, transform this decaying form to Mum-Ra, the ever-living. Blah. Wait, that's not right. Anyhow, the head does not fit on this body, just in case you were wondering. I just have it placed on there. It's not super loose, but it's not super tight either. But it's not that bad. Anyhow, there's Mum-Ra. We're going to do a few size comparisons and then end the video off. Here we have the Masters of the Universe vintage-inspired, or vintage-style Origins 2000X Skeletor for comparison, and we also have the Cartoon Collection Spycore from Origins as well, just to show that he is basically Origins scale, even though he is designed for a 7-inch toy line. Moving those off to the side, here we have the Akala Core Skeletor from Mattel, so there's how that would scale. Very similar in height, and overall musculature is similar, but articulation is much better on the Super 7 figure. Also, quality on Super 7 figure is much better in this one than the Jaga figure. Here we have Cartoon Collection 2000X He-Man. He's slightly larger and taller than a regular Origins Cartoon Collection figure. WWE Elite. Motu Masterverse. Vintage Collection Masterverse. So there we have Skeletor and Mum-Ra. The Ancient, the best pairing in my opinion if you want 80s villain team-ups. Mum-Ra and Skeletor, I do believe, is one of the best team-up options that you can come up with. Classic Skeletor. Looks really good with that. This is the one that came with Molar, so he's missing the tooth. Here we have the Witcher McFarlane figure. And the Chronicles Trapjaw figure. Also scales nicely with this new figure. Of course, the detailing on these two figures are both inspired by live action, so they look a little bit more detailed, whereas this one's animation. If you have made it this far in the video, make sure to like and subscribe. It's just a one-time thing for subscribing, and no charge, no hassle. Occasionally, YouTube may ask you to rate the channel or a particular video, and that is also free. So if you feel like it, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Ring the bell notification if you want to be alerted to new videos. I try to post as much as possible with my busy schedule. Anyhow, thanks for checking out the channel. You can comment down below. Give me your thoughts on the overall review, on the figures, whether or not you would like to pick up the figures for yourself. I love to chat with my subscribers, so thanks for watching, and as always, peace.